Thank you very much, Joey. Much appreciated. Yeah, great suggestion. This one's really interesting, so thanks again for suggesting it. I've got my Roman map out, and now we're going to look at, and forgive my pronunciation here, Llanddewi Brefi. To start with some context, exactly where we are. This is what is modern-day Wales, or a section of it, and what we're looking at specifically here is the Roman fort at Bremia, which is very close to Llanddewi Brefi. Okay, let's look then. We've got a few interesting features here to discuss before I get into the details about the fort itself. First of all, it's on a Roman road. This was known as the San Helen, so that was actually a later term used for it. That was named after a saint in, I think it's the 4th century AD. The San Helen itself was a series of roads, Roman roads as it were, and you can see red line means found road, dash line means we think that's where it was going, so you can kind of connect the two up. Straight away then, you can see it's on that road, which meant it was important. It was also important here because you could probably make out that blue line there, so it looks like it was next to a river crossing, perhaps a fording point, which again suggests a strategic point. Romans always put their forts in the best possible location they could, such as fording points for rivers. That's really important to have. You need to be able to control those points. So yeah, so that's Bremia. You've also got a couple of very interesting things to the south. Now, I'm going to try to say this word, but I'm going to get it completely wrong. So you've got Panteg Uchav, or something like that. You can see it just there. And there seems to be two camps now. Now, I couldn't find much about them other than these look like they were training camps. So they were temporary camps used possibly by Romans to learn how to build camps. And you don't often think of that. And that's actually quite an interesting and important point because, of course, you need to train your troops in order to build, particularly in specific conditions, because in Wales you've got a particular landscape. They may not have never had to have built or created these types of military structures in that environment. So what do? You drill your troops to do it. And in fact, there's one in Scotland I seem to think they found ballistae stones, so they found artillery stones around it, and they think that might have even been a practice siege camp. Again, this is all about how the Roman military works. So right, I'll now get a bit more into the specifics of the fort. Thanks to work done at the fort, we know a fair bit about it. In fact, we even know who was there, which I'll get to in a moment. So this was a fort that was for auxiliaries. These weren't legionaries. This was a particular auxiliary unit, which I'll come to in a moment. The actual nature of the fort itself seems to have been a V-style ditch that was about 11 feet deep. So that's quite a lot. And then there was a turf sort of wall or rampart that was around 18 feet high. So again, that's quite substantial. There were timber buildings within, so we haven't got stone walls. Doesn't seem that there was wooden walls, but perhaps parts of it might have been wooden. Again, we're not so sure at the moment. And within it, there was quite a few things that were found that give us more information. In fact, it's thought that there was actually a bathhouse there. And from some of the stonework found there, which has inscriptions of people, or rather units, and names actually, we can identify individuals with this fort, and we can also identify a particular military unit. That military unit was the second cohort of the Astures. Now, this was an auxiliary unit. They were recruited from northern Spain, and it was a mixture of cavalry and infantry. And you might imagine that's particularly suited to the Welsh landscape because you're going to need people who are a bit more mobile than perhaps legionaries to get around and to be able to, secure the area, do what needs to be done. And perhaps it was those who were also learning to build camps below at Panteg Uchav. But again, I'm not sure if that was the case because you don't know the date for it. What's even more interesting than that is the fact that we have names for some of the people that worked there, or rather helped build things, because you have stones there that were what known as centurial stones or centurion stones, that sort of thing, because you had units that would be working there in their centuries, and they'd be named after or referencing the centurion who looked after them. So we have a couple names. We have Artius Mennius Primus, and it says this was built by Artius Mennius Primus, and there's another one that just says Veronius, or built by Veronius. It's that sort of wording. So again, we can actually put names, as it were, to specific features of this fort. But again, this fort seems to have been temporary, or rather, it wasn't there for a particularly long period, possibly because it was only used for auxiliaries, and therefore, once they'd done their job and once this area had been more secured, the Romans just moved on to the next big thing they were doing. I hope you found that interesting, and thanks again, Joey, for suggesting it. And I, again, always love doing this because I learnt a fair amount about that part of Wales too.